Brazilian police on Monday cleared an encampment set up by supporters of ousted right-wing former President Jair Bolsonaro, a day after thousands of rioters ransacked the presidential palace, the Congress, and the Supreme Court. The assaults marked the worst attack on the nation's governing institutions since Brazil's return to democracy in the 1980s. President Lula da Silva promised to bring those responsible to justice. Demonstrators shattered windows, demolished computers, and graffitied walls before police in riot gear retook the palace. On Monday, soldiers outside raised the flag, while inside, Lula held a cabinet meeting with his defense minister and commanders of the armed forces. Justice Minister Flávio Dino said 200 demonstrators had been arrested, although that number is expected to rise. U.S. President Joe Biden joined other world leaders in condemning Sunday's riots, calling them, quote, outrageous. Sunday's attacks recalled for many the assault on the U.S. Capitol 2 years ago by backers of former President Donald Trump. Dan Restrepo is with the Center for American Progress.
Unfortunately, it's a story that's quite familiar, certainly to Americans. You have a quasi-authoritarian right-wing former president who doesn't accept an election result, in this case, Jair Bolsonaro, who actually fled Brazil a couple of days before the inauguration on January 1st of President Lula da Silva. And today, his supporters tried a coup. They physically took over the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the Brazilian equivalent of the White House.
Lula blamed Bolsonaro for inflaming his supporters after a campaign of baseless allegations about election fraud after the end of his rule, marked by divisive nationalist populism. Bolsonaro denied inciting his supporters and said the rioters had, quote, crossed the line. He left Brazil shortly after he lost the election and has been living in Florida. A Brazilian newspaper on Monday reported the former president was hospitalized in the U.S. with abdominal pain. A source close to his family said Bolsonaro's condition was, quote, not worrying. At least one Democratic lawmaker is calling for the U.S. to expel the right-wing former president. Representative Joaquin Castro of Texas on Sunday told CNN, quote, the United States should not be a refuge for this authoritarian who has inspired domestic terrorism in Brazil. He should be sent back to Brazil. The White House on Monday said it had received no requests from the Brazilian government regarding Bolsonaro's status in the U.S.